So every music business guru and their grandmother has been talking about, if you just master this one thing, your whole career is going to be taken care of. If you master social media marketing, then everything's going to be taken care of. You're just one video, one song away from your entire career being made. I tend to think that that's kind of a load of crap, because it's very emphasized on this Hail Mary approach of like, if you just get this one song, this one piece of content right, then everything's going to be good. And so you're focusing on social media content, but what are the typical social media marketing tactics that musicians are given? Oh, say it's the song of the summer, or say, this song's going to make them cry. How has that been going for most of y'all that have been trying social media marketing? I'm not impersonating anybody. How's that been going for everybody? I would care to argue for the majority of people it's not been going very well. And I think the reason is that style of marketing that was parroted is not only dead, but it was barely alive to begin with. The things that have always worked, no matter if our marketing channels were television, the internet, social media platforms, or even if it was freaking mail, these strategies have worked decade after decade after decade, revolution after revolution, and the principles are never going away. They're the foundations. And it's a different type of marketing. It's not this hypey social media marketing. It's a very specific type of marketing that I'm going to be sharing with you in today's video called direct response marketing. And direct response marketing is fundamentally at one goal: tracking and measuring to figure out what works. That's it, right? So what do we do? As the name suggests, direct response marketing is you are trying to go direct to your fans and get some response for them, some engagement, some action that they take from that connection, right? So how do we do this? Well, there's a few different methods. There's 4 methods in this video that I'm going to share with you that are direct response marketing gold. And if you start implementing this consistently in your music business, heck, if you implement one of these consistently, you're going to start seeing results. If you implement all 4, everyone look out, because you're going to start doing really well. So let's talk about number 1. What's the first strategy that everyone needs to understand? Emotionally niche content. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is that we need to attract the ideal fans that would be most receptive to our music. Now, how do we do that? You have to communicate with someone where they're at in their mind. So you need to think about your dream fan. Who's that person who's the most receptive to your music? And if they just heard your song, they would be like instant fans, right? What are the ideas that are circling around in their brain? What are the things they're thinking about? I always use some really cliche examples, like just so you can get the point. So if you're a country artist and you're like, man, my horse just broke up with me and started going out with my truck and stole all my beer, that's going to be very... I'm just kidding. That's, you want to talk about things that your dream fan is going through. So if it's a breakup, you want to talk about the emotions, the thoughts that are going through their head as they're going through the breakup, right? If someone is really just trying to get out of a depressive cycle, right, and you write music that's like uplifting and is talking about mental health and all that kind of stuff, then you can start speaking to the thoughts that person is already having in their head and start getting them to maybe shift towards the positive using your music as a vehicle to do that, right? Because they're looking for hope. And if you give them that sort of hope and you give them a good song that helps uplift them and change their spirits to a positive one, well, heck yeah, that's a goal right there. That's an ingredient to create an instant fan, is creating a piece of content that features your music, but uses a text hook to really contextualize the video in such a way that they feel like, whoa, this is like speaking right to my soul. That's why Song of the Summer, This Song Will Make You Cry, doesn't really work that well. It's so vague and superficial, and frankly, this kind of stuff is given out by music marketers because it's a cool piece of content for them to share with musicians, not because the strategies and tactics themselves are really super effective, okay? So there are some of them where it's like a fun, like they've used the, you're not going to believe what this is going to blah, 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 those kind of things. There have been examples of that working in the past, but like I've said, I think that that's dying and it was barely alive to begin with. So I think the stuff that really connects with people is when you tell stories that resonate with where they're at right now and you use your music as the soundtrack for the scenario of that piece of content, so that when you speak to them emotionally and you speak about the things that they care about, the music is there reinforcing the emotion and building the connection between fan and artist, right? So that's one of the goals that niche content does, is we're emotionally targeting the things that is relevant to our music, because every song is basically a story around an emotion. That's really what songs are. And so what you have to pick out is, what is the emotion that my song is speaking to? How can I start speaking to the person who is feeling those emotions? What are the thoughts and ideas that are in their head? How can I step into the story that's going on in my fan's mind and start talking to them like I was just their buddy at the bar with them, sharing a beer while they were unloading and venting to me, and now I really understand all that they're going through. Right? Now, sometimes that's easy to do because sometimes you're going through the things that your fans have gone through. And so you have to kind of connect within yourself to help connect with them. There's all these different kind of contents. But do you see how much more nuanced and direct that kind of marketing approach is, as opposed to, I wrote the song of the summer? That's superficial, vague, attention farming level crap. Right? But what we're talking about is building genuine connection, authentic connection with your fans through the hooks and the context of the videos, right? So that's the first strategy that happens within niche content. But another bonus of that is brand positioning. So enough pieces of content where you're showing yourself in your particular brand. Maybe you're a little bit outgoing in your public persona. So what I mean by that is, like, visually you're doing things that are eye-grabby. Maybe you don't have to dye your hair a crazy color, but you're wearing sort of the artist outfit, if that makes sense, right? So you're easy to look at because, like, you stick out. You're the zebra amongst the pack of, like, lions. Probably don't want to be a zebra in a pack of lions to begin with, right? I don't know any other example to use, but you're sticking out, right? It's like, oh, who's that person with the white and black stripes, right? You want your artist persona and brand to be like that, where you're instantly recognizable. Like I said, you don't have to go super hardcore, like, I'm going to paint my whole body, right? You don't have to do that, but you have to have something visually that kind of makes you easier to look at. And through niche content, you're not only connecting with people based on the emotions they're feeling that resonate with your music and kind of build that bridge, but you're also creating that association in their mind that anytime that they see you, they feel understood, they feel connected, and they feel something positive and good, right? Dopamine and oxytocin start kicking up in their brain when they see you, because they've associated visually your brand to the emotions that you've made them feel, okay? So that's the first strategy. The second strategy here, it's in the name, DMs, direct messages. Now, I know some people's stomachs just dropped to the floor when I said that. Like, I have to message my fans? Yeah. You want to build connection with people. One of the best ways to do it is to reach out to them. One of my best little bonus tips that I can give you in this regard is the first introduction message that you send to people. If you send it as a voice memo, especially if they're hot leads or warm leads. Now, if you don't know what I mean by that, that's just a marketing term. That a hot lead is someone who's like, they are a diehard fan, and a warm lead is someone who likes you, right? But they're not a diehard yet. They just like you, right? So when you're messaging those people, if you send them a voice memo, they're going to be like, oh, that's so sick. Like, I know that's his voice or her voice. Like, I've seen their videos. I know that's them. And it just makes you feel not like a bot and not like, hey, I just spammed a whole bunch of people with this same message. It seems very authentic. It's very one-on-one. But there's also a way to reach out to cold leads. And in marketing terms, those are people that have never heard of you. Now, I know some people have heard of these ideas where you just copy and paste and send. Don't do that. That is spam. Do not spam people. First of all, nobody wants to open or engage with spam. You'll probably get filtered out of their conversations by default, and Instagram will recognize, or Instagram or whatever platform that has messaging will recognize that you're copy and pasting over and over and over again, and they will flag you down and they will punish you for it. So don't do that. Please. I know there's musicians out there that are still like spamming the same copy and paste stuff on people's comments and threads, and stop it. Stop it now. Nobody wants to look at it. Nobody wants to engage with it. In fact, it does the opposite. It makes us hate you. So stop it right now. But there is the right way to do this. In fact, we've been doing this with our clients. Sorry, some people don't like it that I mentioned that I help musicians, but I do. So we've had clients that have been getting great results doing this, even with cold prospects. What are they doing differently? Well, first of all, they're not spamming. You go to someone's profile and you try to find a genuine place of connection. Think about it like this. If I'm a metal fan and Metallica is one of my favorite metal bands of all time, well, if I go and find people who are commenting on Metallica's page to go message them to try to get them to be fans of my band, we're probably going to have a lot in common. You know, I know everyone's different, everyone's got their own hobbies and interests and stuff, but if you guys are all in the same culture of a particular like genre, you're going to have lots of things that you're connected and in agreement about, right? So just go to their profile, find that connection point. I don't care if it's like, oh, nice guitar, or hey, that's a cool car, or hey, nice pets, what's the breed, or whatever. Find some connection point that you can jump in and start engaging with them. And then there's a way to go through that conversation in a way where you build rapport and you're not just asking them to like, hey, go check out my band. Nobody wants those kind of messages, but there's kind of like a subtle way that you can do that. But the whole point of this is you have to be okay with direct messaging your fans. You have to be okay with that. And it's not weird. It's only weird if you're spamming people or if you don't know what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? So when you message them, come at it from this perspective of like, let's build rapport. Let's get them to kind of like, especially if they're cold, get them to actually kind of like know you and like you a little bit. Maybe share a video in the messages or something like that. Like get them to build rapport before you start asking them, hey, can I have your email? Because what we've been finding is that when we go too early to asking for people to join the emails, sometimes it doesn't work out, right? Sometimes people are like, yeah, no problem. Here's my email. And they send it right over. But then there's a growing skepticism of that, right? And depending how, it's really contingent on how well we do the rapport building. Because if we go for it too early, we kill all the rapport and nobody wants to sign up for the email list. But if we build more rapport, then the ask isn't as abrasive, so to speak. But what happens? You can drive people from direct messages to join your Instagram close friends list. You can drive them to your streaming platforms. You can drive them to join your email list, your text SMS list. It's a great place because you're connecting with them one-on-one. There's not this kind of barrier for them where they're like, oh, this is just a post. This isn't really to me. No, a direct message is directly to them. Okay? So it's a very great way to get their attention. And plus, if you're a fan of a similar band that they're a fan of, and that's your like mutual engaging point, if they check out your profile and see that you're a musician, they may just follow you and like you from the first videos that you have pinned to the top of your profile, or your most recent videos if you don't have any pinned to the top of your profile. So direct messages are a great direct response method to start getting immediate engagement, immediate action from your fans, okay? Just depending on where they are they cold, warm, or hot, that changes how you talk to them now. So if they're cold, you have to be super friendly, very low pressure, low pressure. Then warm, you can be a little bit more like, hey, thanks for engaging with the content. I really appreciate it. How long have you been listening to the music? You can ask questions that are a little bit more about you and them liking you because they've demonstrated that they're warm fans. And then there's the hot fans who are just like, I love everything that you do. They're DMing you before you say anything, right? Those people, you can just be like, hey, thanks for the support. I've got an email list now. Like you could pretty much go for the kill right away with those people. But for cold and warm audiences, you got to really kind of build up to it and do it a certain way. So just a little tip on there. Once you go out there and you start messaging people, don't just start spamming people. Try to build rapport. Try to build connection. And then you'll notice the spots in the conversation where you can start pivoting towards talking about you as an artist. The third strategy, one of my favorites, and I've got this fourth one is sort of a bonus one that I'm really happy about, and I haven't been really excited to share it until now because I'm like, I want to test it. I want to see other things, but yeah, I'll show you in a minute. So number 3, email. Email is one of the best direct response methods, period, for musicians. Why? It's one-to-many connection that does have this appearance of one-on-one connection. So you get the personability, the likability of a DM, but you get to communicate with more than one person. And how you do that is in your emails, you write everything from this sort of like first person perspective, talking to a person. You don't talk about it. So when all of you watch this video, don't say that. Say, when you watch this video. So I was thinking about how you would love to hear this new song that I put out. Not, I was going to go see how this email list would like to hear my song. Don't communicate in this y'all, we, group kind of pronouns. use things like you and the person. It should feel like they're reading a personal letter to you. This is another little bonus tip. There's a legendary direct response marketer named Gary Halbert, and he's he's an interesting character for sure. And he talked about this idea of you want to have your mail appear like in the A pile versus the B pile. The A pile is like if you go and you get a piece of mail, like you go open your mailbox and you pull the mail out, there's going to be a bunch of ads that are clearly brochures and ads and all that stuff. You usually don't even open it. You just throw it directly in the trash. And then there's the stuff that looks like it's personal handwritten letters or bills. Those you open, right? So with your emails, you want the same kind of thing. So in the subject line, if it's like, get access to this super crazy new merch bundle, they know that that's an ad before they even click on it. So they're just going to delete it. Or they'll like open it so then they get the notification off and then they back out. Right? Those are the two people that do that with emails. They either delete the email or they click it to get rid of the notification and then they back out and don't actually delete it. So those people bug me because I'm like, see, I don't know if you actually opened it and didn't click through because you didn't like the copy or if you're one of those kind of people. But either way, you get this one-to-many type of communication, especially if you do it personable, like speaking to one person in particular. You can build affinity this way because you can create pre-written email sequences that send in certain intervals, like maybe for the first 7 days that they join the email list, they're getting an email a day that's telling them stories about how you got to this point as a musician, right? And you go through that and you can build that affinity really deep because you can tell stories in a way that are very persuasive as opposed to like and then I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this. Like nobody wants to read that. But if you take like the South Park storytelling perspective, so I did this because this happened, but then this happened, and because that happened, this happened, but then this happened. That's a lot more interesting of a story arc to go through, even if I was just saying nothing. That was more enjoyable to listen to than and then. That sounds like a child who's coming up and trying to tell you a story, but they don't know English or any words yet. That's usually what happens. And then my favorite thing also about the email list is once you've built the affinity, you've built this value and connection between your email list community, you can sell them stuff. And they're more likely to buy through the email list than they are through some like social media story or some social media post, right? So the email is a great place to sell things because you can sell things very low pressure, but still create internal pressure for them to want to buy, right? That's a really great method. Now, this last method is very similar to email, and it's direct mail. You might be thinking, what? This is a great direct response method that has really never gone away. And I need you to think about something. In the rise of AI, there's a meme going around where people are like, when you don't see very many AI generated videos on your feed, and then it's like the eyes get really big and they're like, when you don't realize that there's AI generated images on the feed and that's why you think there's not any AI generated images, it's because they are AI but you don't know it. Like, oh no, that's terrifying. You're going to have to understand that in the next 5 to 10 years, if I'm looking at a long horizon, people are going to progressively grow to distrust everything that's on the internet. They're going to be like, how do you know that that's real and not just AI and a deep fake or whatever, right? So they're going to trust more in-person things. So in-person live events like concerts, but also in-person forms of marketing, one of which being direct mail. See, email is kind of a nice intermediary because it's not really on a social media platform, but even then, people are going to start asking themselves, is this email made by AI, right? I use AI to help me like come up with ideas, and then like I write out a lot of my own copy because I think it's helpful. That's actually a tactic I learned from John Carlton and Gary Halbert. It's to write out the copy so it gets embedded into your brain, where most people will just copy and paste AI. Well, if the AI starts getting to a point where you can't really tell the difference between a copy and pasted AI and a human writing it out, people might start not trusting emails as much in 10 years, which is a fear. But if you understand direct response marketing principles, you're never really fearful whenever there's a medium change or a medium shift where people are now consuming through this medium and now they're consuming through this medium, because you understand the psychological human nature that doesn't go away. It's all using the same stuff, right? So in direct mail, what's nice about this is you can get more touches. So let's say somebody gets like a free plus shipping offer from you, or they get like a tiny wristband or some kind of low ticket item. Instead of just shipping it out to them, ship it out to them and put a little direct mail piece in there. So maybe it's like a letter that says thank you, and then at the very end of the letter, kind of like how you would write it out in an email, you start pitching something at the very end. Like, yeah, thank you so much for buying this, this merch bundle for $15. It really helps us out, and we hope you put this on. You go wear it out around town, and you show people that you're a diehard fan of this. And also for the diehards of our music, we wanted to make sure that you knew about our fan club. So if you click on this, you go to this QR code and go to the link here, you can sign up for our fan club. That's in a written letter that you've printed out and sent with their free CD or their wristband or their stickers or whatever it is that you've sent out to them. And even if you have a print by demand store, get their get their physical address and ship them a personal, put a stamp on the letter, send them a personal letter with it, right? And say things like, you may be waiting for your t-shirt to come in, or it may have already arrived, but either way, I wanted to thank you for being a fan, and then you start going into a thank you transitioning into a pitch for something else, right? So direct mail can be absolutely insanely powerful. It was one of the most effective direct response mediums and still might be today, because there's a difference between efficiency and effectiveness. Okay, this is what Gary talked about a lot, which is that something can be very efficient, like the internet, right? Now, think about it like this. Internet order forms are notorious for having anywhere from 5 to 10 to 15% conversion rates. And the industry has just become kind of okay with that. And Gary used to always scoff and seem like the old man yelling in the sky, because he'd be like, I can't stand the internet for selling. And people would be like, what are you talking about, Gary? Billions are sold through the internet every day. And he said, that's not the point. He's like, in this direct marketing context, you're actually better off driving them to, let's say, a phone or something. Now, while I don't think you should all get phone lines and drive people to phones and stuff like that, what he's talking about is that the internet is very efficient at getting views and attention, but sometimes it's not the most effective means of selling somebody. Direct mail, Gary would look at his list and he would find lists where he would get 50% close rates. That's absolutely crazy bonkers. He had a coat of arms mail piece that went out over 600 million times, and it's probably the most widely circulated direct response mail letter ever. And he made millions and millions and millions of dollars from that, right? Because he sent out an offer to the right people for the right price. It was like a $2 or $3 item in the 70s. And he absolutely slayed with this direct mail piece. And so the point is, no matter what the modern evolution of consumption has been, there are certain mediums that are more efficient, and there are certain mediums that are more effective. So for example, a medium that is effective, you may get 10 people through it, but 7 of the 10 people will close. And then in an efficient situation, you may get 1,000 people to come through, but only 10 or 12 of the 1,000 may actually buy. So, right, like, and I'm talking about two different offers, not at the same price or anything, because don't look at the numbers and be like, hey, those are two separate examples. But you get the idea. The internet is good for getting lots of volume, but it's not always good for conversion. Where direct mail is not necessarily about the volume, it actually is about the conversion. That's what's really interesting, and I think a lot of musicians in the coming years are going to start to realize how valuable these direct response marketing strategies are, because in lack of the big institutional branding that we see from like Coca-Cola and Nike and what most record labels try to do with their artists, that stuff is only efficient if you're a multi-million, billion-dollar corporation that can have these endless advertising budgets. If you're the average everyday musician, you need direct response marketing. One of the old institutional ad guys was a guy named David Ogilvy. He did this ad for Rolls-Royce that sold incredibly well because he talked about the loudest thing in this car is the clock that's on the dashboard, and just talked about all the features and benefits of it, and it was a really great ad piece. He was in big institutional advertising, stuff you'd see in like Mad Men, and he came out one day and said, the direct response guys, you guys are the ones that are going to carry the future of marketing, because it's backed by stats, it's backed by measurable outcomes. It's not just like, oh, let me come up with this abstract thing and hope it sells. No, everything I've been talking to you about, whether it's the content, whether it's the messages, the emails, the direct mail pieces, they're all created with this very intentional purpose to get the fan to respond in some kind of way. And you can track if they respond, how much they responded, and look at all the data to see what is actually effective. Okay? That's why, in my opinion, got the hiccups, direct response marketing will always beat out social media marketing or any other kind of fad named marketing that gets thrown out there by people that don't understand the foundation and roots of marketing, okay? But the people that understand, direct response marketing history and the ones that have figured out those strategies, they see this clearly. They see the evidence and the writing on the wall that direct response is the way for the independent musician, not big institutional branding. So if you got some value from this video, hit the subscribe button, the like button, all that kind of good YouTube-y stuff. And if you'd like to learn direct response marketing principles in person with me, August 1st through the 3rd, I'm going to be in Norman, Oklahoma, hosting a weekend workshop, okay? So the link for the tickets for that workshop are in the description. So if you're interested in spending a whole weekend with me building out all the direct response systems that have gotten my personal clients anywhere from $1,000 on their first, launch of a product, or even recurring income of $1,200, $1,700, and on the high end, clients who have gotten, multiple clients now, who have gotten $2,500 from one client, $4,000 from one client. So if you're excited about learning these direct response marketing principles and want to get them built into your music business fast, click the link that's in the description. Come to Musicians Ignite Live August 1st through 3rd. I'd love to help you in person. Maybe you get put in one of our hot seats where we actually dive into your specific music business while we're talking about some of these systems so you can get it built for you in person by me. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you guys on another video inside of Musicians Ignite. Take care.